Hey, good morning and welcome back to GP Outdoors. We are literally on the eve of our first bigger snowfall of the year. We had a really odd fall again this year. Historically, sometime around that middle to late October, in addition to the morning frost, we'll often get a number of different really light snowfalls. They usually come down, they last a few hours or a day, and they melt away. We had one of those this year, just one, and nothing since. And in fact, we had that unseasonably warm period, which we all benefited from by getting that woodshed filled in nice, warm, sunny days. But that's past now, as you can see from the backdrop of the sky. So I'm right in the last hours or days of trying to get everything prepped for winter. And one big part of that prep is getting the driveway prepped before the snowfall. Today, I'm going to run you through some of the reasons why I spend the time and the effort to make sure my driveway is cleared and ready for the snowfall. For me, in the early years, I never paid much attention to the driveway at all. I didn't worry about prepping the driveway for the wintertime. I didn't really think much about it because at the time I used to contract out other parties to plow the driveway for me. After I got that compact tractor, which was the B2601 back in 2017, it became really apparent to me over that first few winters why it's important to spend a few hours to make sure that the driveway is actually ready for the wintertime. And part of that prep, as you can see, was the purchase of a backpack blower. It was a definite necessity because the previous versions of blowers I owned, including some of the handhelds I had borrowed off of neighbors, just did not have the power or the velocity to clear this driveway efficiently. It was an arduous process, and in fact, because they weren't strong enough or they were a little weaker, I couldn't get a lot of the leaves up out of the driveway. Because at this time of the year, these leaves, as you can see throughout the video, are packed pretty tight, matted down in the corners of the shoulders of the driveway. This backpack was worth every dollar, and you'll see why. So let's talk about driveway prep and why it's so important, and what I do now and what I've learned over the years. As we get into the fall, I start to pay more and more attention to what is laying around in the driveway. Big hardwood branches, pieces of wood, large or small rocks or boulders that have eventually either pushed their way up through my gravel or my dirt driveway or somehow ended up in the driveway throughout the season of the summer. These types of impediments are not your friends when it comes time to firing up the snowblower and the tractor. You'll see that when I clear the driveway, I don't just clear the driveway proper, but I've learned to push and clear back about 1 foot to 2 feet of the shoulders as we enter into the edges of the forest. And not just of the leaves, but as you can see here, I pick up any debris that's in the shoulders, including rocks. The reason for this is because as I go through the winter time, although I pretty much know where the driveway is, when it's under a few feet of snow or it's under a lot of snow, there are times when either I'm not paying full attention or I'm not quite sure on certain corners, and I'll drift that snowblower off the proper driveway and it'll start to run into the shoulder. So I make sure that I don't just clear the driveway, but I also clear that shoulder out, at least a little far back. And I try to be consistent with how far back I clear the driveway on either side. Second fill. The second part of that driveway prep is coming back through with the chainsaw. and sometimes I'm going to need the tractor and the grapple. This year I didn't. I'll go through and I'll cut back and remove any trees that have fallen that are getting close to the edge of the driveway or that I feel are hung a little bit and have a high probability of falling into the driveway at some point during the winter. Because honestly, I get enough trees that fall across the driveway due to windstorms. So if I can preempt that a little bit, just to make life a little easier when it's freezing cold outside, it just makes a lot of sense to spend that time ahead of time. As I said, it's one afternoon's work. It's not a treacherous or a difficult or laborious task. It's just a little tedious, but it pays off dividends throughout the winter. For those that are new to the channel, this driveway is 1.25 kilometers in length, which is just shy of a mile. It takes me about 2.5 to 3 hours to clear this driveway just of the leaves and debris. But it's worth the gas, the time, and the effort. Plus I get a couple hours to myself just to think and clear my head. It's a beautiful walk when you're on a day like today and it's not too cold, not too hot, the sun is not beaming down, and you certainly don't have any freezing rain or snow coming at you. This driveway from start to finish will require me refilling the tank 3 times. And in fact, you'll see at the end of the video, I just ran out in the nick of time as I finished off the last parking spot on the side of the driveway. One reason why it's important to clear them is because it becomes difficult to drive either in the early mornings or through the evenings, whether there's been a snowfall or not, because you start to get into that frost area. That's water or precipitation that's fallen or developed on the leaves or the bed of leaves across the driveway, which tend to freeze and become almost a bit icy and very, very slippery. So turning corners, especially some of these sharp corners, even when you're driving slowly, it's like turning or driving on a little ice rink. So it's important to clear them for that reason. I also understand that it's not a good idea to keep organics or allow organics to remain or be mixed in with the gravel on the driveway. And as you watch the video today, you may take notice of the difference in the color of the gravel or the dirt that exists under the leaves I'm blowing away versus what was out in the sun and dry. You can tell that the ground is very wet underneath. So getting those leaves up and out of the driveway, I think, helps to keep the driveway clear or dry from moisture and freezing. Another reason, which I wish I had spent more time filming and showing you, is that as those leaves accumulate in the driveway, there are some areas where you'll see there's a thin covering of leaves, but there are also, especially around bends or corners, you can get 4, 5, 6 inches of leaves settled in the driveway. And you can be surprised at what you're going to find underneath those leaves when you blow them into the forest. And there are rocks, whether they're softball sized or hardball sized or bigger, which I found today, in the driveway, which are hiding under those leaves. Those hardwood branches or pieces of stumps or wood that have somehow fallen into the driveway are not going to be very helpful when you try to push your blower through it come wintertime. So getting that debris up and out of the driveway leaves you the opportunity to ensure that any of those errant boulders or debris that's not going to be helpful to the augers in the front of your blower or your fan blades are cleared out of the driveway, fully cleared out of the driveway. Not only in the driveway proper, but as I mentioned, at least a foot to 2 feet back into the shoulders, so that I've got a nice clear path, and it minimizes the opportunity for damage to occur or broken shear bolts. As a reference, the very first winter that I pushed a blower through this driveway, I broke 7 shear bolts. 7. After a couple of years of starting this practice of walking the driveway, clearing the driveway, and getting them out, you may recall I went for a couple of years where I actually did not break any shear bolts on that blower. And last year I had one errant rock that I'd hit, so I ended up breaking 1 shear bolt out of the entire season, which I think is pretty good considering I'm clearing snow in a forest. For us, because the driveway is so long and it's so narrow, my neighbor over the years and myself to some degree have cleared out little areas which I call little parking spots. I think we have 5 of them along that stretch of driveway. That gives cars the opportunity, should they meet face to face in the driveway, for somebody to be able to either drive backwards and pull off the driveway somewhere safely. So not only do I clear the leaves out of this area, but I also snowplow these areas throughout the winter, just so that there's an opportunity to make sure that cars can get by each other without having to back up a mile down the road. Ironically, sometimes it's not just, hardwood branches or rocks that you find laying in the driveway underneath these leaves, but in fact, every once in a while, you find tools you've lost that may have fallen off the back of the tractor. I spent, I don't know how much time looking throughout the cabin trying to find my AccuMark about 3 weeks ago during firewood season. Well, looks like I found it. The backpack blower itself, super powerful. This is a BR450, and I believe they make one as strong as, I think their biggest or strongest model is a BR800. Costs a little bit more. The reason I had settled on this blower is because my still dealer actually allowed me to take each one of them out into the back of his property and test them. So the 250 or the 350 for me was just not enough power for what I thought I was going to need out here in the forest. The 450 did the job. One, it had a lot of big CFM, big power or velocity, but for comfort, it had thicker straps than the other 2 models under it. And in fact, their higher level models have even thicker straps for your back. Although some of you know that I've got lower back issues and hip issues, strapping this unit on the back for 3 hours up the driveway, walking up and down hills, is actually not at all uncomfortable. It's a very comfortable unit, the way it hangs and the way the weight is distributed. I can wear this thing for hours as I did today, and I don't feel discomfort. So it's much easier, much less strenuous than trying to carry a handheld blower. So generally speaking, I go for a walk. I've got a mixed fuel gas can in one hand, and I'm using the blower in the other. I'm impressed with the power of this unit. If you watch me blowing, especially on the shoulders of the driveway, you can see it's powerful enough where it literally rips up stretches of matted leaves that have been compacted and pressed into the ground. And in some places, because the ground is wet underneath, you can see it spitting dirt up out of the dirt driveway, which is why you'll see I always wear my forestry helmet, because it's powerful enough that it will kick up small stones, rocks, pebbles, and of course dirt and debris. So the purpose of today's video was not to sell you a backpack blower, but hopefully as new property owners to give you an opportunity to consider them a little further, because when you walk into your dealer, you might suffer a little sticker shock when you see the price of a backpack versus a handheld or a battery operated, which is not something I would recommend you do if you have this much work to do, because the battery's never going to make it to the end of the driveway. I'm pretty much sure of that. But my point being is that whether it's a STIHL or a Husqvarna or any other make, the comfort and convenience and the power of a backpack is well worth the money, especially as you start to age. Because walking this driveway with a handheld can get very uncomfortable and very, very exhausting as you get a little older, especially when you're walking up and down hills and you're constantly triggering a handheld unit that you've got to carry out across your forearms. Having it on your back and being able to walk freely is far more comfortable and less taxing on you, especially if you've got a lot of work to do as I do here.
I couldn't have timed that any better. Hope my hair's okay for the shot. Right to the end of the driveway. Doesn't get any better than that. And I got the last parking spot cleared. Nice.
I hope it's been helpful for you. Thanks a lot for sticking around. One more thing done. I'm just about ready for that winter and that snowfall, which is coming apparently tomorrow night. Okay, have a great week, folks. Thanks for sticking around, and we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.